Betty Garrett's musical comedy talents first became widely recognized in 1946 with her award-winning performance in Broadway's Call Me Mister. Well, that same year, her husband Larry Parks achieved stardom in The Jolson Story. But Larry was blacklisted during the McCarthy era, and Betty was rarely seen until she again won national acclaim on All in the Family and Laverne and Shirley. Larry Parks died in 1975, but Betty has kept her husband's memory alive in her hit one-woman stage show. And today it's our great pleasure to welcome her back to Over Easy, Betty Garrett.
Behold the way our fine feathered friend his virtue doth parade. Thou knowest not, my dim-witted friend, the picture thou hast made. Thy vacant brow and thy tousled hair conceal thy good intent. Thou noble, upright, truthful, sincere, and slightly dopey gent, you're my funny Valentine, sweet comic Valentine. You make me smile with my heart. Your looks are laughable, unphotographable, yet you're my favorite work of art. Is your figure less than Greek? Is your mouth a little weak when you open it to speak? Are you smart? But don't change a hair for me, not if you care for me. Stay, little Valentine, stay. Each day is Valentine's Day.
Have a seat here. Well, now, wait a minute. How are we going to do this? All right, that's good. As long as we get there, that's the main thing. Oh, Betty, it's so good to have you on Over Easy again. Now, you and Larry shared 30 beautiful years, happy marriage.
Yes.
And then he was suddenly taken with a heart attack in 1975.
Right.
What was your life like together prior to Larry's death?
Well, we had a really wonderful life because both being in the profession, we worked together a lot. And we found that we got along very well together working. That doesn't always happen with professional couples.
True.
But we loved working on stage. And I remember an occasion where we were doing Cactus Flower in Chicago, and there was a wonderful rip-roaring fight scene. It was very funny. One of those scenes where you say a line and there's a roar from the audience, and you say a line, there's another roar. And we used to go off stage every night and go like this. It was just so much fun.
Sure.
And of course, besides that, there was our domestic life. We had two wonderful sons. And Larry was just about the best father I think anybody could possibly be. So, and we shared our lives together. I was a liberated woman long before it was fashionable. And I think that's one of the reasons it was easy for me to get myself going again after he died, because he left me with a very full life to lead. He always was very encouraging to everything I did. He was very proud of me, and he allowed me to have a very full life in the theater and everything, so that I had such interests that after he died, those went on, and that made it very easy for me.
And that's how you overcame that difficult period after his death. You kept things going on. What about your close friends and associates? How do you feel about how they must have helped during that period?
Well, I tell you, I don't know whether this is good for everybody, but my house, for 2 or 3 weeks after Larry died, never had less than 50 people in it. And it was like just continuous coming and going of people who embraced me and sat and talked with me and told me stories about Larry, some I had never heard.
Yeah.
I never laughed so much, I never cried so much in my life, and all this warmth came out to me, and I needed it at that time. I had a very dear friend, Annette Fabre, who called me on the phone and gave me probably the best advice. She said, you must tell your friends that you're going to be very leaky for a while.
Leaky?
Yes, and she said, don't be afraid to be leaky, and you just tell them they're going to have to put up with it. And what is wonderful about that is that it gives you the freedom to just cry when you feel like it.
Right,
and
sure.
of course, that's one advantage of being an actress too. Actors are used to seeing open displays of emotion. We're used to that, so nobody goes around saying, don't cry. You know, you'll be all right. You know, you don't want to hear that. You want to hear, yes, it is terrible. And
your two sons were in their 20s when their father passed away. What were their feelings? How did they cope with the grief?
Well, they were wonderful. The night that Larry died, I was by myself with him, and that was very difficult because I had to call the emergency squad, and I knew before they got there that he was gone. So I spent quite a while by myself, and one of my neighbors, fortunately, it was 3 o'clock in the morning, one of my neighbors I was able to call came over immediately as soon as she could, and the boys came in shortly after that, and they were so calm and so good about it, and they adored their father, and it was a very hard thing for them, but I think they sort of sensed that I needed their strength. And I remember them putting me to bed like a little girl and sitting and putting the dog in bed with me and just sitting. And it was dear. It was wonderful.
Well, I would say they needed your strength too, because it affected them. They were very close to their father. The experience of grief is universal. Each of us deals with it in different ways, I'm sure. Dr. James Peterson, co-author of the book Widows and Widowhood, A Creative Approach to Being Alone, has counseled many people who've lost a spouse or a loved one. Right now, he's here to share his expertise with us. Dr. James Peterson.
Hello,
Doctor. Doctor, let's begin with, how do most people experience grief?
There are certain stages in experiencing grief that seem to be almost universal. You may remember, Betty, right after the death, there's a period of numbness.
Yes.
And that lasts 5-10 days. And after that comes just an outpouring of all kinds of emotions. Despair, pessimism, sometimes hopelessness, certainly anger and hostility. Sometimes the person that died, and we say, why did he do that to me? Sometimes it's God, sometimes it's the doctor, sometimes the boss who made him work too hard, you know. All of those angers. And finally at oneself. Because then we say, what if?
What if?
What if?
Yes.
You remember that?
That's the hardest part.
That's the hardest one.
Part for me.
And then we're overcome with guilt because we should ourselves have done something about that. Now, those wash over us for months. They get less intense. And after that stage comes a kind of emergence from the chrysalis of grief. And we begin to find our support system. Those 50 people you had, Betty, that's the support system. And our children and our families and so forth. And we pay more attention to our friends. And then we begin to make a new social life and to play some new roles.